Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to help address any concerns people may have over the availability of food and the continuing operation of retail outlets, along with the availability of local produce and community efforts to get food delivered to vulnerable people. I'm pleased to be joined today by Findlay Macleod from the Isle of Man Creamery, who will give you an overview from their perspective when I'm finished. Let's start with the agricultural industry, and in particular the farming community, which provides local food resilience on island. I am frequently asked, are we able to produce enough food to feed the Isle of Man? And the answer to that is emphatically yes, but we would have a much restricted range of goods. However, for certainty, we had made a decision a few weeks ago when the crisis started that we would bring the Agricultural Development Scheme ADS payments forward and make them available to help farmers with their cash flow and in preparation for the coming season when they have to buy goods and invest in stock for the coming year. Farming is not something you just switch on and off, it requires planning and certainty. On Friday, Tynwald approved a comprehensive support package for our fishing industry, which has been badly affected by low stock levels over the last year, and in particular this season by bad weather over the winter period. These are small business centres based on Manx registered boats that have had other problems compounded by the collapse of their European and Far Eastern markets. They are all reliant on a few processors on island, and it was obvious that without intervention, if we lost either side of the sector, they would not be in a position to take advantage of any recovery when the crisis abates. Nor would we be able to rely on them to step up local supply to ensure we have plenty of food to eat. So we are literally trying to keep our fleet afloat. Some fishers will continue to supply the local market, having diversified, but they will be ready to take advantage of a market recovery in due course. Moving on to milk production, the dairy farmers and Isle of Man Creamery are doing a superb job. The creamery have, over the last few weeks, added a further 1,200 customers, and I hear more today, to whom they are now delivering. With restrictions on access and people in self-isolation, this is a lifeline. The creamery informs us that they have good resilience plans in place, and in the event of up to 80% of their staff being unavailable, they will still be able to supply milk. This is highly unlikely, but very reassuring. Smaller producers have also upped their production and ramped up capacity to deliver to some in the community who have been unable to get out and have combined other products such as delivering groceries along with milk. The meat plant continues to produce more meat than we consume on island. If ever there was a time to eat local lamb, beef and pork, now is it, as export opportunities reduce. This will ensure business continuity. Our Laxey Glen flour mill has been working flat out to keep the bakeries and local shops supplied with flour, and I'm pleased to report that there is plenty of bread on the island. I now move on to food retailers. That includes our supermarket chains, small independents and restaurant and takeaway facilities. Unfortunately, due to the emergency measures, restaurants and such like are no longer able to open for in-house dining. But we have relaxed the regulations to allow them to repurpose and sell takeaway food. Some are delivering, and whilst this will not replace their mainstream income, it may be a lifesaver both to their businesses and some members of the community who are in isolation and unable to go out. The logistics chain is working well, and Findlay will talk about this later. We are getting reliable food supplies from the UK, and the steam packet continues to make 2 sailings a day to ensure that fresh produce is reliably and consistently available. Fortunately, the panic buying that we saw a few weeks ago has subsided, and there is plenty of food and non-food products available in all our retail outlets. There are some delays due to the very sensible and practical social distancing measures that have been introduced, and I thank people for their patience in this respect. I would also implore people to shop sensibly. If we all do our bit, there is more than enough for everyone. For those that don't want to queue, I am told that early afternoon has often been much quieter and food stocks remain good. Smaller retailers, and in particular farms, who sell direct to the public, are stepping in to fill the gaps created by extra demand on delivery services. I would advise anyone in isolation who is having difficulty with deliveries to search Isle of Man food and drink produce deliveries, which is an up-to-date list of all those we know about. There is also an email link to let us know about any service we have missed. Alternatively, contact our department on 685 835 and we will endeavour to point people in the right direction. I'm very pleased to say that there are a number of community groups now operating around the island who are making deliveries to vulnerable people, working alongside the many neighbours, family and friends who are all doing a great job supporting those in self-isolation. We have a number of other functions within DEFA, that's my department, all of which are being carried out in the main remotely. Our planning department continues to function, and we are working on measures for the planning committee to operate without face-to-face contact, and I can also announce and reaffirm the building regulation fees increase will now be delayed until at least September. As alluded to earlier, planning restrictions and licensing restrictions have been relaxed to allow businesses to repurpose and provide takeaway service without fear of enforcement proceedings. Our environmental health team continue to support colleagues in other departments, particularly the health service, who have food queries, so we are able to continue to feed the nation. Alongside that, they are providing support to the contact tracing service. As DEFA Minister, I am proud of how our island has come together and displayed great strength and community spirit. I would like to use this opportunity of thanking all food producers and retailers for what they are doing, and finally a great thank to you, our Manx residents, for buying local and supporting these businesses. Please continue to do this when the crisis has passed, which it will. Thank you. I will now pass over to Findlay and take questions later.
Thank you, Geoffrey. I'd just like to support what Geoffrey was saying there about the no need to panic buy. We have planned for various scenarios at the creamery, even losing 10% of our staff at any one time, 20%, 50% and even 80%. And under all of those scenarios, we will still be able to supply the island with fresh Manx milk. So no need to panic buy with that situation at all. But I think the whole situation certainly does show the value of having local produce supply that is safe, traceable and resilient, as well as being fresh. We faced some major challenges as a business over the last few weeks, and I'd just like to chat through some of them at the moment. We have had an unprecedented number of calls into the creamery, and some from a lot from existing customers, changing their orders, adding to the number of products that they're buying from us. But we've also been inundated by requests from new customers, and our customer base in the last 2 weeks has grown from about 5,800 customers to well over 7,000 customers in the space of a couple of weeks. Now it takes about 10 or 15 minutes to onboard each new customer by the time we've got their direct debit details, the name, the address, email address for e-billing, and all the details for deliveries. So you can imagine the amount of work that loading on 12 to 1,500 new customers has taken. So at times we've had to close business to new customers, but we have always been focused and open to what we would call the vulnerable customers, so people over 70 years old and the people who are actually ill at this time. So I would say to the rest of our customers, please be patient with us if you can't get through straight away, but we will be opening up new services in the very, very near future. For example, tomorrow we're actually starting a new daytime route, and that's going to be around Farm Hill, Saddleston, Lakeside and some parts of Douglas. And that will be run in the daytime, which is unusual for us. We tend to operate during the night so that people have their milk on the doorstep in the morning. But we are, for the sake of getting the service delivered to new people on a temporary basis, we're going to be running some rounds during the day. At a later date, we will actually then switch all of those customers back into our evening rounds. but initially those will be daytime rounds. On Friday, we opened up to new customers again for a period of 3 hours, and we managed to load another 400 customers in that period of time to the milk rounds delivery service. And those deliveries will start on the 27th of April. There'll be a combination of daytime deliveries and evening deliveries. So we will inform every customer of when they're going to be getting their milk on those services. We've had to make a very high level of investment over the last couple of weeks in terms of people and some vehicles as well. We've recruited 5 new people in our customer service team. We've recruited 6 new drivers, and we're actually looking for another 4 drivers at the moment. So this is a significant investment for what is a farmer-owned cooperative, and so we're very hopeful that people who have started to get their milk delivered will continue to use the service after the current situation is over, because as I said, we've made a significant investment over this time to serve the Manx community, because we see doorstep deliveries as a key part of people following the government advice to stay home as much as possible and allow people to deliver milk and produce to them. As a business, we also have some large challenges off the island as well. Some of our customers are in a very difficult position, the likes of Emirates Airlines. We had quite a large contract with them, and as you can imagine, with the planes all grounded at the moment, that business just disappears completely. So that it's not all great news that we're getting lots of new customers. This pandemic is having some pluses and some minuses and some major challenges to our businesses. But I would like to thank some absolutely superb people at the creamery who've done an amazing job over the last couple of weeks. In particular, our drivers, who we have at times we have increased their working day by almost 50% with new customers. So I don't know how many people would find it easy to cope with an extra workload of 50% overnight, but they have really risen to the challenge and worked incredibly hard without complaint. Our customer service people have worked tirelessly. They've done extra hours to load new customers onto the system. Our production guys have been responsive and very flexible in terms of producing extra stock of various products that we know that we're going to be needing, and also the management team at the creamery, who have all, to a man and to a woman, really dug in, worked hard, and made sure that we achieve the very, very best level of service and a consistent quality of product for all of our consumers at this very challenging time. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Findlay. That was a good overview and quite reassuring, although concerning in terms of lost market opportunities. Now, I intend taking questions. We've had a phone call to say that some people missed some figures during my earlier speech. If anyone wants me to reiterate anything, I'm very happy to do that. First on my list this morning is Paul Moulton.
Hello, Mr. Boots. Thank you. You mentioned here how restaurants have turned into takeaways. Have they also got to be checked over by you to make sure that they're hitting all the safety angles and hygiene angles? And secondly, on that, many smaller places have very, very small kitchens. How can they self-isolate in those circumstances? And can people be confident that they are getting the best food and obviously completely virus-free?
Well, Paul, all of the restaurants that are supplying takeaway services have already been checked or are under our radar in terms of the conditions in which they operate and environmental health. A lot are businesses where it's a family business and there's not a lot of people involved. Obviously, it's up to the people concerned if they're bringing employees in to ensure that they work within the distancing rules. In terms of the food being safe, they will be operating to the normal standards, and food is generally hot, and that is a good environment to sterilise items that are going out. And people should be careful when they take deliveries. They should wash their hands after unwrapping the food, and be careful generally and socially distance when food is delivered or when they're actually picking the food up.
Findlay, please.
Sorry?
Question for Findlay from Isle of Man Creamery.
Well, can we do that afterwards, Paul? If I do my questions first, and then I'll get Findlay on. Otherwise, we're having to. It's been a bit like a magic roundabout here.
I'll come back to you the second round then.
Right. Manx Radio. Tim.
Fast am I, Minister. Hope you're well.
Thank you. Yes.
Bring banks have closed, amenity sites shut, people obviously being asked to store bottles, which is okay for some if you've got a garage or a shed, but if you're living in a flat, you can't really realistically store. We've had reports of fly tipping coming in. We've had that from beach buddies and the police, and there's been concerns over the dog fowl bins being full and a potential long tail issue. Is this being looked at and monitored? Could it be reversed?
We are well aware of the problems that this is causing. For people, who, as you rightly point out, who've got gardens or garages, it's an easy task of just moving the stuff out. But if you're living in a flat or an apartment, then there can be problems. It is something that's under review. Obviously, the initial lockdown is to try and stop people moving around, and the less excuses they have for moving around and going places means that we get a better idea and we keep the lockdown as best we can. That we'll review that this coming week. We're having a look at it because we're only too aware of fly tipping and storage problems. I think there may be a solution in the pipeline.
Thank you. Just on crowds, we've also got plenty of questions from farmers who are saying obviously there's people rambling and going across their land on the public rights of way, touching the gates and everything without gloves on, and they're concerned about the amount and the volume of people, some of whom are getting lost as well, and are then going across land that isn't part of a public right of way. So is that being looked at as well?
Well, we have had approaches from some farmers, and there are two sides of the coin. Some farmers think that it's the rights of way should be used. People need to get out and get a bit of exercise and look at our lovely countryside. At the same time, some farmers are concerned, some of the issues that you raised there. I think people social distancing on public footpaths and getting their daily exercise shouldn't cause any problems. There are no human health problems in terms of accessing the countryside. We have kept our glen areas open. We ask people not to drive long distances to go and access these areas, but if you're near an area or near a footpath, then at the moment I see no reason why you shouldn't use it for your daily exercise.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I'm looking at my list. Rob Pritchard.
Good afternoon, Minister. First of all, with regards to the delivery services that the likes of the takeaways and restaurants are doing, given these are very tough times for them, they're not running as normal given the circumstances. They're still going to be incurring costs for bringing the likes of supplies in, even things like petrol for actually doing delivery services. I don't know if it's been mentioned before, but could you clarify what support is available for reimbursing those services they're having to cover?
Well, if they're operating and continue to operate, and a lot of them are owner-operator type businesses, then at present there will not be any support as such, because they will be continuing to trade. But if they're laying people off or they're keeping people on the books, then they do qualify for various grants for people who are in employment or unemployed. They will, of course, qualify for the £3,000 grant if much of their business has been curtailed. But that needs to be looked at on an individual basis, and they ought to contact the helpline to find out whether they will qualify or not. There will, of course, be other reliefs available in due course, I'm sure. The rent freeze, or not rent freeze, the rent holiday, or should I say, the fear eviction over the next 3-month period and maybe longer will help some businesses where they have large rent bills to pay, and there will be relief available through VAT payments and a relief in that way. So yes, there are other ways of them recovering some of that cost.
Thank you very much. My second question relates to something that you said in your statement before about planning permissions and applications. You say a lot of that is continuing to run remotely, but the fact that it is running remotely, what changes have you had to make? And is it causing a backlog in the process?
Well, I think the truth of the matter is that people are concentrating on other things, and there are not a lot of planning applications coming in at the moment. But what we do want to do is clear those that do come through the system, so that when we do get recovery, construction industry and people will want to get moving again. So we want to be in the best possible position to do that. Hence, we're setting up a remotely operated planning committee so that they can clear that backlog.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, that is all the questions for me. I'll ask Findlay to come back.
Afternoon, gents.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
Hello. Can you hear me? Yes.
Sorry? Yes, I can.
You can hear us. Okay,
Yeah.
just checking. My question to you is, obviously, it's almost like a TT time for you, I suppose, with the over needing to produce milk. I've been into some local corner shops, and in the afternoon they are out of milk. So clearly, there is more demand than you can meet, or maybe their numbers aren't hitting it. Are you having to transfer your production from cheese to making milk? And the second part is, a lot of people are freezing fresh milk. And I was always told that wasn't to be a good idea. You should get UHT. As a professional, can you give your advice on that, please?
Okay, you can certainly freeze milk, and it does the product no harm. When you take it out of the freezer, it's the same rules apply. You should take it within 3-4 days after opening the bottle or the carton. But absolutely no harm to freeze it, and it's a far better product than a UHT product. So you're still going to have the freshness and the nice flavour, nice mouthfeel. In terms of some local shops being out of stock, we have seen an increase in our sales locally of milk, and but we do have plenty of stocks. So if those stores want to order more stock, then we can certainly deliver milk in the afternoons and get that to stores. It is challenging at the moment.
What's consumption up by?
Sorry?
Percentage-wise, what's consumption up by here? Because people are presumably drinking more milk or keeping it anyway.
It's the overall consumption isn't up greatly because basically what we've lost is almost the entire food service sector. So there's no milk going to coffee shops, restaurants, hotels now. So that, which is quite a significant volume, has disappeared literally overnight. So what we're seeing is people are consuming more at home, and so retail sales maybe 2 weeks ago had quite a spike. I think that was just the beginning of lockdown. People were anticipating the lockdown period, and people were very, very much stocking up quite intensely. And so we did see a large spike through stores the week before last week. Last week, things had settled down to similar levels, maybe slightly higher, but the vast majority of the increased volume is going through our milk rounds, which you would expect in terms of people wanting home deliveries and self-isolating, not wanting to go out and about into the retail environment, and quite rightly so. It's what we all have to do at the moment.
Thank you.
You would expect in terms of people wanting home deliveries and self-isolating, not wanting to go out and about.
Come on, boys.
Into retail
We got some technical problems there. Right, we've got some more questions for the Minister.
Thank you, Findlay. Yes, someone's got another question for me.
I'll ask.
Yes.
Bob.
Oh, sorry. Go on. Sorry.
Sorry. We've had comments about, and it could apply to Findlay as well, actually, deliveries, click and collect services at large supermarkets. Is the scope maybe, if they're recruiting more drivers, to link up locally with some corner shops and maybe deliver food at the same time to those that are self-isolating, if they have enough numbers?
Well, I alluded to that earlier, Tim. There's a lot of good community spirit going on, and people who are in isolation, who have neighbours and friends, are collecting food and making deliveries for them. But some of our smaller shops and also farm producers have upped their home deliveries, and there are quite a few people out there now doing home deliveries. So at the moment, I don't think there is a problem. I know one large supermarket you probably talking about, Tesco's, have been overwhelmed, I think, to a certain extent by the amount of home deliveries they're having to carry through. But other providers are stepping in. At the moment, I don't think there is a problem. But if there is a problem in the future, we'll have to look at working with other retailers to see whether we can put either voluntary measures or use some government staff to help fill the gaps.
And another question, if I may, and then we're done. I think I was wondering if the creameries would be able to help out. But local lamb, how much is the meat plant able to produce? Because I've heard reports of Welsh lamb and other lamb products being available. Really, we want to be supporting our own at the moment, I would have thought.
Well, it is disappointing that some shops are selling imported lamb. At the moment, we have an excess of lamb on the market or coming through the meat plant. The export markets have collapsed in the UK, like on the Isle of Man. Restaurants and pubs, etc., are closing down or closed down, and so demand has gone, and the export markets to France and the continent have dropped away. If ever there's a time to buy local, now is it. Yesterday I went and did a shop in Peel, and I went to our local butcher and I bought local lamb, and this is what we should be doing, and we should look to the future as well and support our local farmers.
Thank you.
Anyone else got another question?
Yes, please, Minister. I'm just wondering, because we've had quite a few comments about it, could you just go over the figures regarding cases again, please? I think there's a few out there who may have missed them before.
Well, in that, I'll have to get someone else to come back to you on that, because if you're talking about the coronavirus cases, is that what you were talking about? The healthy?
I believe so. There's people who are saying that they've missed figures that were mentioned earlier. I know you mentioned that you could go back to them.
Well, I haven't got them here. I'm not been privy to those this morning. I will just ask. Liz, have you got the figures there? Okay, we'll deal with that separately in a short while.
Okay, that's it from me. Thank
Okay,
you.
Everyone else finished? Well, thank you very much, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your Sunday.
From the first deliveries into Douglas
to stocking shelves with essentials.
We're providing transport for key workers.
We're keeping you informed and delivering services that people rely upon every day.
We are keeping the Isle of Man's
essential services running.
Please help us to help you.
Shop responsibly, consider others,
And stay at home if possible.
For you, for our island, for our community, let's do this together.
For you, for our island, for our community, let's do this together.
For you, for our island and for our community, let's do this together.
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 For you, For our island, for our community. Let's do this together.